What's up, everyone? Beast Mode back here with another video. So today I wake up and I saw that Format Library, which if you guys haven't already checked out, formatlibrary.com, great site for retro Yu-Gi-Oh, has a bunch of formats and deck lists posted, events. Check it out. I woke up this morning and saw that on formatlibrary.com they had all of the top 8 deck lists from the Nationals World Qualifier, the really big, large Edison event that happened the weekend of Nats, and all 8 deck lists were posted. So I'm sure there's probably some videos already running around, but I wanted to just cover the list and discuss my thoughts on some of the card choices. It's great to just kind of discuss how decks are changing with the meta and how certain cards fall in and out of popularity. So here we have Diva Hero, Beat, and list is pretty standard. Of course, Bubble Man is not very common. I've seen some lists with it. Maybe it's picking up some momentum, but that's kind of a cool tech choice there. One gold or double gold Sark in this list, which I'm not sure that's a staple on this list typically. Kind of has like a little bit of a straight Diva Hero vibe. And I know it's a little bit confusing because we have Diva Hero, we have Diva Hero Beat, we have Hero Beat. So really to differentiate between the decks, this is Diva Hero Beat rather. This is Diva Hero Beat because of the fact that they play Divas and then they play the Alias and they play Spark. Okay, Spark is pretty much the key card that really differentiates the decks. Diva Hero, is more. I posted a deck recently that I topped an event with that has the Malicious, the Caius, plays Miracle Fusion, but doesn't typically play Spark. There may be an Alias in it, one or two at best, but does not play Spark. And then you have Hero Beat, which does not play Diva typically, plays more of a skill drain type deck. With the skill drains and the sparks, and you might see oppression in the main board. You just don't typically see Diva. So really, those are the three quote unquote Diva type hero builds. And I know it's kind of confusing because we have like 3 similar decks, but they actually play very differently. Especially Diva Hero, that deck really shouldn't even be clumped up in this whole mess because the deck like plays so many different cards. It plays Infernal Prodigy. Actually, we have a deck list later on in this video that we'll cover, but you'll see the difference. But anyway, this is Diva Hero Beat. Gold Sock is not typically seen in the deck as far as I know, so that's kind of cool. Everything else is pretty standard. Sideboard, this card right here, Super Polymerization, is very, very good. This card is going to be in a lot of, I think it's going to be almost a staple in some of these hero builds. Anything that pretty much plays Miracle Fusion is probably going to be sideboarding Super Poly because it's just destroys. Can use this against frogs. You can use this in the mirror match. You can use this against so many decks because everybody's playing Stratos right now. Everybody's playing Miracle Fusions. It's just so popular. So this card is really, really good in those matchups. And then, of course, this deck can play Shadow Imprisoning Mirror as well as Light Mirror. All they have to do is just side deck out Plague if they really wanted to. It doesn't really matter much at all. This card is just it shuts down so many decks. So this here is really solid. The sideboard seems solid. So this is our 8th place list. Let's get into the 7th place list. This here is a frog. Looks like Hero Frog actually, which now seems to be the popular frog build. For a while, it kind of had fallen out of the rotation. It was more Diva Frog and Junk Frog, and now we have Hero Frog. So I just think at this point, Miracle Fusion is just so powerful. It seems that people are just playing it everywhere. I don't know if it's just trendy or if it's because of the fact that it's just really, really good. It's probably more like it. So we've seen a few of these builds, top events as of late. I know some people don't believe frogs are all that good. I think that I've said it for quite some time. I think that if it's not frogs, it's Black Wings. It's really a coin flip between the two. They're both the best deck of the format, in my opinion. So sideboard here. This is kind of the old school sideboard. I know Fraser Smith has been kind of updating his with more of like some destruction spells that are catching people off, traps rather. Destruction traps that are catching people off guard, like Mirror Force, Torrential, and some of those, rather than just side decking a bunch of cards to stop your opponent's sideboard. Because that's kind of what happens with frogs, and I think I talked about this in a video where the sideboard game, games 2 and 3 are really hard for the frog deck typically because people are side decking so much hate because this deck is so unfair. This deck, game 1, is like the best game 1 deck of the format probably. It's slamming. Of course, there's not as many Monarchs. There's still 5 in this build. But being able to just go plus every turn with little to no effort is just like a cheat code. So Game 1 is really strong for this build, typically, for frogs in general. And then that's why so many people put so many cards in their side deck for frogs. So it's really hard for you to, as a frog player, you have to navigate games 2 and 3. And I do think, again, I think most of the innovation is going to come from the sideboard at this point, because the main deck is so optimized. So many good players are playing this deck. So many good players are building this deck. I just think here is the sideboard is where it needs to be. But again, this is pretty standard in terms of Vandy's Fiend, Cyber Dragons, of course, the Super Polys. Like I said, that's 2 decks we've already covered with them in the sideboard because of Miracle Fusion. So I do think if you're playing Miracle Fusion, you should be playing Super Poly in the side. And yes, so that was our 7th place deck, and we'll have 6th place here. Let's see, Bayou Turbo. This looks like 10 foots build, which is pretty much the standard of Bayou at this point. Might be a card or 2 different with double dust. Actually, I do think this is his exact build. Spirit Reaper. When I see Spirit Reaper in Bayou, I pretty much go to 10 foot. He's pretty much the person who's pioneered that. Sideboard, pretty standard. I like the double deck Devi. I think that's necessary with frogs. Compulse is very, very strong, like I've talked about. And then the 1 oppression. So I do think this is the right ratio. I say that all the time. I think 1 oppression is probably safe going into the field, a field that you don't really know, or if you have a feeling that it is Hero Beat or Diva Hero and or Blackwing, because oppression doesn't really stop those decks enough. Of course, you can hit the Miracle Fusions. You can hit the Diva too, so it's not terrible against that. But the problem is if you main deck 2 and then play 6 Blackwings that day, it's kind of doesn't feel good. So I just think 1 is probably the right number. That was our 6th place deck. We go into 5th place here. Looks like it's additional frog. So this here is Hero Frog again. Different though with the Wing Blast and Regeki Break. I've never actually played frogs. I really don't want to do it. I don't know. I don't really like the deck just because it kills my deck. Feel like it kills my deck a lot, or the decks I play, especially with like setting Raikos and Hamsters and stuff. I just have a hard time with that, or Pyramid Turtles or whatever. But I've never really played the deck, but I do think Wing Blast is really good, and I've played against players in my local who literally like Wing Blast my Fossil Dyna 3 times and then like rise it twice, and it didn't do anything. Because a lot of people side deck in Fossil Dyna, which all the frog players know that's coming in now. That's why they have triple Soul Exchange here, triple Book of Moon. Just to out Fossil Dyna if needed. They got Regeki Breaks here. I actually like this sideboard. Again, but this is a sideboard to try to counter your opponent's sideboard. You can see that they got the triple Vandy's Fiends to go in, take out some of these Monarchs because they know pulling the rugs are coming in. They got Book of Moons for the Fossil Dyna, Soul Exchange for the Fossil Dyna, Regeki Break for Fossil Dyna, and or Mask of Restrict or any of that. So this is kind of the old school sideboard, which I think will be changing. Just try to counter your opponent's side. I think there's going to be a little bit more innovation with this. So again, this actually incorporates the junk Synchrons rather than Divas, but still get the Miracle Fusion. So interesting build here. Again, we've seen variations of frogs over the past year. They've come a long way. So we're going into our top 4 deck list now. I believe this is actually Fraser Smith's list. So, and as you can see, the sideboard is different compared to the others. So I do believe that he has this list pretty well optimized at this point. It's probably a card or 2 different from event to event depending on how he feels that day. Not a whole lot of change. The sideboard here is probably where we see the most. Again, double Super Poly in the side here. Compulse, Mirror Force, Torrential. So more traps going in, probably games 2 and 3, because they catch your opponent off guard. Definitely. Of course, they still got the Dust Tornadoes in case there's some Master Restrict there. The Vandy's Fiend just really help when you take out a couple of the Monarchs. And again, this is more Monarch light here. So pulling the rug doesn't really hurt this as much anyway. It's only 4 Monarch, really. Some zombie builds play triple Kaya, so this is not really Monarch heavy, really. But Miracle Fusion is so strong. See, I don't know how many decks it's been. Four decks in top 8 so far have been playing Miracle Fusion. So I do think that if you're not playing Miracle Fusion, you're probably going to have a hard time in tournament play as of right now, just the way the meta is. So that's our top 4 deck. Let's get into 3rd place here. So this is very interesting. Amaryllis Burn. So I'm not overly familiar with this deck. I know I just posted a video, was my last video I posted about like how to play zombies, and I actually played against Amaryllis Burn. I played maybe once or twice against this deck. So I think if you just don't know what's going on, this deck can definitely catch you off guard, because this card here is not commonly seen in Edison format. And if you don't really know how to deal with it, you can take a hit from Titanial and then a couple burn turns with the amaryllis, and you are in big trouble. So this deck is very, very interesting. I've never really played it. I don't know the play style with it. I'm guessing it plays kind of like Quick Draw with the Raikou type style, but I could be very wrong. I would guess that this deck can brick just because you play triple Titanial, triple amaryllis, and those things do not want to be sitting in your hand. You want these in the graveyard, and Titanial's on the field. Sideboard here, triple counter. So typically I see this in the main board. I know Carpath was kind of the person who created this deck, and he had this in the main board. The problem with this card, which I learned just from discussion and watching videos, is that your opponent can kind of play around this by attacking directly because it's mandatory. So you can just poke with a low attack monster and they have to activate the counter. So again, people that know what's going on with this deck can definitely play around this card, but you can take advantage of players that just don't know what's going on. And when they attack with a Judgment Dragon and you just counter them. So this card is one of those hit or miss depending if the opponent knows what's going on or not. Sideboard here, I don't even know, Fiend Comedian. This is pretty cool. So this card here is really good against graveyard reliant decks, Frogs, Vayu, maybe Lightsworn. Because either way, it's a win-win whether you call it right or wrong. You don't really care because you're going to be milling cards from your deck and or removing your opponent's graveyard. So it's really, really cool tech here. We have Magic Cylinder, catch somebody off guard and steal a game. One Royal Decree, which is interesting. I guess this deck is not completely trap heavy, and just having the one in there might catch somebody at a key time. And Skill Drain, which is interesting too. I'm not sure if this deck really plays around, can play that well with Skill Drain, just because you see Raikous. I guess you could easily side those out. Titanial still would get to pop herself with Skill Drain on board, so I guess that makes some sense. So you just don't see enough of this deck to really say, if this is optimal or not, the build. I think it's only top a handful of events, and that might be generous. But it's really cool to see this in paper and do well in a paper event because, like I said, I've only really seen it online. So third place deck list, really cool. Second place. Do you believe this is a true hero? His Diva Hero build, which we've seen a few times, maybe one or two card different. I think Spirit Reaper is pretty new. I think he's topped with Mind Crush in the main build board before. But yeah, this is his deck here. He's pretty much the only person that's really been topping with it. It's getting more popular now because he's been topping with the deck. Sideboard changes pretty frequently from tournament to tournament. I think that's kind of how he rolls, which is what I do too. I think that's the most important, is really keeping the sideboard fine-tuned for the event that you're playing in. So Nobleman, one smash. I love Smashing Ground. This card is really, really good, and I don't know why people don't side it more. I feel like I just one of the few people that always have it in a sideboard. You can make the argument for Soul Taker, but I just feel like Smashing Ground is just so much better because Titanial is obnoxious, and it's one of the few instances where this is way better than Soul Taker when Titanial is on the board because it doesn't target. Master Restrict. Double Decree is interesting here because this deck doesn't play a heavy 9 traps. You would think is a lot, but really a lot of these can easily be sided out because like Trap Dust Shoot, you don't always keep in going second. It depends on the matchup, of course. You just don't always automatically take it out because you went second, but you could easily pop out maybe a Trap Dust Shoot, a Mind Crush, and a Deck Devi, and put in maybe Double Decree, a Smashing Ground or something, Nobleman, whatever. You can side deck Double Decree with this deck. It's not impossible, especially against like Vayu, which is heavy, trap heavy, and because that deck can just blow you out sometimes. So I do like the build. Very typical of a true hero, so we've seen this a few times. Very similar build, and that's our second place list. Our first place list, we have Vayu Turbo, and again, it looks to be almost the same build as the seventh place deck or sixth place list that we went over. I think the only difference is there's one less Dust Tornado and one more Oppression in the main board. In terms of the main deck. So this again looks to be 10 foots build. Again, most of the Vayu decks at this point are very, very similar. We're talking 1 or 2 cards different. The Spirit Reaper, I think, is probably just a staple now. So I think when you see Vayu build, you're probably just going to see Spirit Reaper. I think really where it comes into differences is the trap lineup, really. I don't think there's much going on with the spells. That's pretty much what it's going to be. But it's really like how many Royal Pressure you're playing, 1 or 2. How many Dust Tornado are you playing? Really the only difference is sideboard looks to be very, very similar. 1 Deck Devastation Virus. This might actually be 10 foots exact sideboard. which again has been pretty standard. And I use 10-foot as an example because he was on the channel and we covered both his deck. I think first and second place in one of the BCS tournaments were the exact same list, which is exactly this list. So at this point, it's probably just the set standard in terms of value. So it's kind of crazy that value won this whole tournament. I think that for myself included, I was kind of putting this deck in like more of an A tier, moved it out of S tier, but this deck consistently just tops events and like will win events. So I don't think that the deck can be hated on anymore. It just seems to win. It gets there. It can be very explosive. Some people say this is the best Hamster Raikou deck. They're probably right. Because Raikou, you don't just want to blind mill. You want to actually have something in the deck worth milling, and this is the best deck for that. Vayu, Sirocco, Plague. There's just so many good cards to hit. But I do think that if you're not playing, obviously it seems to be pretty clear based on these results here that if you're not playing Miracle Fusion, I guess you should be playing Vayu, it seems like. But of course, this changes tournament to tournament. So, I just wanted to cover a quick video of the top 8 deck list. I'm sure there are others running around, but I also plan to cover my HRC tournament run, which was a tournament that took place yesterday. It's a small online tournament. It's like 75 players. I played for fun. There might have been a prize support. I don't really play tournaments for prizes. I just play just to play. And what I'm trying to do now is pick up a deck and see if I can top with it. So that tournament report will come out. I don't want to release it today because of the fact that there are players I played against that are in the top cut, and I don't want to give away any information. So that will be coming out probably in the next couple days, and we'll cover my deck list and my tournament report. And we are closing in on 1,000 subs. So if you guys do like the content, and if you want to join the Beast Mode Discord server or Edison War League, obviously you'd find content on all that stuff here. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and the Discord link will be in the description. With that being said, I'll see you all in the next one.